Welcome to today's deep dive. We know you're tuning in today because you already have a solid foundation in mindfulness and esoteric philosophy.
Right. And you're likely looking to deepen that existing practice. Or, maybe you just want to prep for a highly nuanced discussion.
Exactly. You want to filter through all the noise out there
Yeah.
and extract the actual structural core of some really complex ideas. And, well, that is precisely our mission today.
We are dissecting a rather extraordinary piece of source material today. We're looking at a translated Indonesian text titled Simply Daily Yoga Meditation.
Right, authored by Sogatha Mahardika.
Yes. And this work really stands out because it systematically bridges this vast, almost staggering spiritual cosmology with a highly practical, rigorously stripped down daily methodology.
It really does. So the goal for our deep dive today is to unpack this specific guide.
Yeah.
We want to pull out those foundational arguments to give you a shortcut, a comprehensive understanding of its unique approach to self-realization.
Because the worldview presented here, it operates on a massive scale. It maps out multidimensional realms, but, and this is the crucial part, it continually routes that cosmic architecture right back down to the very deliberate choices you make right in your living room.
Which is such an essential balance. Having a grounded perspective on these expansive concepts, it makes them highly applicable to the intricate realities of your daily life, instead of just leaving them as these abstract floating theories.
Absolutely.
So the author initiates his thesis with a really sharp comparative analogy that, honestly, it immediately sets the tone. He points to martial arts.
Right, the physical defense systems.
Yeah, he notes that disciplines like karate or kung fu, or the traditional Indonesian martial art, pencak silat, they are fundamentally techniques utilized to defend the self.
They're systems designed to protect your physical perimeter from external threats.
Exactly. But he contrasts this directly with yoga meditation. He defines this not as a defense mechanism, but as a technique to comprehensively know the self.
It shifts the entire focus. It moves from guarding the ego to systematically dismantling it to just see what remains.
Okay, let's unpack this. What does knowing the self actually entail within the specific framework of this text?
Well, it demands a complete paradigm shift regarding what meditation is actually meant to achieve.
Right, because it's not just sitting quietly.
No. The text argues that true meditation simply cannot be compartmentalized into a 20-minute exercise you perform on a mat. It has to become a pervasive way of life.
The 24/7 operation.
Exactly. The underlying premise is that through relentless, consistent observation, a practitioner begins to understand the layered mechanics of their physical body, their mind, and their soul.
With such intimacy that they are no longer blindly reactive to those external agitations.
Right. The objective is total self-realization, which the author distills into a rather uncompromising principle. He says, "He who knows himself knows his God."
He who knows himself knows his God. That really positions the divine not as some external sovereign entity you have to seek out, but as an internal reality.
An internal reality obscured by a profound lack of self-awareness.
Yeah. And to facilitate this level of awareness, the text meticulously redefines the human architecture. It categorizes the human being into three distinct interacting layers, or bodies.
Of the three bodies, yes.
He defines the first layer as the gross physical body. That's the dense material vehicle governed by the panca indera, or the five senses.
Which we use to navigate the material plane.
Right, it's the vehicle of friction and interaction.
Yeah.
But as he points out, this is merely the outermost shell.
Just the beginning.
Beyond that dense shell, he introduces the second layer, which is the mental or etheric body. And finally, the third layer, the causal or astral body.
And the mechanics he describes for the second layer, the etheric realm, they are highly specific.
Yeah, they are quite a departure from traditional Western views of some immaterial, cloudy afterlife.
What's fascinating here is the rigorous, granular detail the text provides regarding this etheric realm. The author does not present it as a nebulous state of being.
Not at all. It's almost sci-fi.
It really is. He describes it as a concrete functioning dimension constructed entirely of prana, that vital energy and light. He asserts that this etheric universe actually contains its own planets, its own stars, and its own moons.
Operating on a scale hundreds of times more vast than our observable material universe, which is wild to think about.
And the physical laws governing this space are completely inverted from our own.
Right, because it lacks dense material composition transportation between these etheric structures, doesn't require mechanical thrust.
Exactly. The text details that entities travel via localized masses of light, and they achieve speeds that surpass electricity or radioactive energy.
Faster than anything we have here. And there is no atmospheric weather.
Which means there is no environmental degradation.
No bacteria. and in complete absence of lower-level biological diseases.
Furthermore, because the inhabitants operate within bodies composed of pure energy and light, they completely bypass the need for physical vocal cords or manual labor.
They just use intention.
Yes, pure concentrated intention. By applying their will, they can fluidly alter their forms, manipulate their immediate surroundings, and engage in instantaneous nonverbal communication with other entities.
Which is an incredible concept. And this framework also provides a fascinating structural explanation for various cultural folklore.
Oh, the shamans.
Right? The text addresses the reality that not all consciousness transitions smoothly into this environment. If an individual dies lacking spiritual awareness, or if their consciousness remains heavily anchored to their material possessions or their gross physical body, they experience profound disorientation.
They become ensnared in the lower, denser frequencies of this etheric realm.
And the author identifies these disoriented trapped entities as the very spirits or ghosts that shamans and mediums routinely interact with.
That aligns perfectly with the logic of this specific cosmology. If a consciousness is literally incapable of recognizing that its physical vehicle has expired, it naturally hovers at the closest possible proximity to the material plane.
Sharing a frequency with dense earthly attachments.
Exactly. And this observation brings us to the central conflict of the soul's progression in this text.
Which is?
Well, the etheric realm allows for immense freedom of creation, and it completely lacks physical suffering. Yet the author warns it is profoundly dangerous.
Dangerous in what way? Are souls losing their sense of progression because the environment is just simply too comfortable to leave?
That is precisely the mechanism of the trap. The text cautions that the etheric realm is so endlessly mesmerizing and so devoid of the physical friction we experience on Earth that consciousness can become stagnant there for thousands or even millions of years.
Millions of years just stuck.
Yes. Entities arrive, they experience this overwhelming relief from material pain, and they erroneously conclude they have attained the ultimate heaven. Or as the text refers to it, Swargan. They actually believe they have completed their evolution.
It sounds a bit like the cosmic equivalent of doom scrolling on social media.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a pleasant, frictionless state that tricked you into thinking you were engaged in meaningful activity when you're actually just immobilized in a feedback loop.
That is a highly accurate modern parallel. The true objective, according to the author, is to maintain enough awareness to recognize the temporary constructed nature of even that magnificent etheric realm.
And to consciously pass through it into the third layer.
The causal or astral realm. This is the stage where the consciousness sheds its etheric light body and seeks Ananda.
And Ananda is defined as an eternal, absolute, and unchanging happiness.
An internal state of bliss that is entirely self-sustaining. It does not rely on external stimuli, not even the light speed travel or form shifting of the etheric planets.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, how does an individual ensure they bypass that highly seductive etheric trap? The author anchors this progression directly to the mechanics of karma.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the trajectory through the etheric realm is entirely predetermined by the internal state you cultivated while operating the gross physical body.
Right, while you're still alive.
Exactly. To evolve beyond the etheric, a practitioner must systematically resolve their earthly desires, their obsessions, and their karmic residue here and now.
So karma here is not framed as some mystical tally sheet of good and bad deeds.
No, it is a literal mechanical anchor. If consciousness exits the physical body, still generating cravings for fame, wealth, or sensory pleasure, that localized craving literally weighs the etheric body down, preventing ascension to the causal realm.
Which introduces a highly provocative segment of the text regarding morality. The author posits that achieving this supreme level of awareness naturally leads a practitioner to transcend the very concept of sin.
Now, to be clear, we are examining the sociological and spiritual arguments presented in the source material impartially here.
Right, we're just reporting what's in the text. And the author contends that the concept of sin has historically been weaponized by various religious institutions as a psychological boogeyman.
A tool to control populations through the fear of divine retribution.
Yes, the text handles this critique very systematically. It argues that an advanced practitioner doesn't abstain from harmful actions out of some terror of being punished for a sin.
Rather, their abstinence is the result of fully comprehending the impartial universal laws of action and reaction.
They internalize the mechanics of samsara, the continuous cycle of life, and putabhava, the cycle of rebirth.
It effectively reframes morality from a system of divine judgment into a system of spiritual physics.
Spiritual physics, I like that. You don't avoid touching a burning stove because you fear the stove is morally judging your actions.
Right. You avoid it because you fully understand the physics of the burn.
Exactly. When an individual masters this understanding, clears their karmic anchors, and effectively exits these cycles, the text describes the ultimate pinnacle as achieving Christ consciousness.
Which the author explicitly aligns with the Hindu philosophical concept of mokshatam jagatitaya ka iti dharma.
To break that down for a discussion, moksha refers to the ultimate liberation from the cycle of rebirth, while Jagadhita points to the prosperity and well-being of the world.
So this peak state is not just a personal escape route.
No, it's a liberation that inherently harmonizes with the greater universal order.
It is the absolute synthesis of supreme internal freedom and universal harmony. However, the author is deeply pragmatic.
Very.
This immense cosmic evolution of consciousness cannot be achieved through theoretical study alone. It requires rigorous, applied methodology.
So if the goal is to avoid getting trapped in these vast, tempting cosmic realms, how do we actually anchor ourselves? The author argues that escaping the cosmic trap actually starts with the most mundane physical choices,
He does not demand that you retreat to a mountaintop.
or seek out a specialized guru. He outlines a highly accessible toolkit that you must apply in the midst of your ordinary life.
And that toolkit begins with the absolute physical foundation, which is dietary consumption.
The text issues an unequivocal warning against gluttony and mindless eating.
A pure, intentionally regulated diet is positioned as an absolute prerequisite for advanced practice, and the logic provided is structurally sound.
The author states, if the tongue can be controlled, the five senses can be controlled.
That is a brilliant diagnostic test.
It really is.
If an individual cannot master the basic biological urge to consume beyond their nutritional requirement, they simply lack the cognitive discipline necessary to master complex emotional and spiritual turbulence.
The diet is the initial training ground.
Once that physical discipline is established, the text introduces the core physical technique of the entire philosophy, and it is remarkably austere.
It is a specific breathing protocol, the 3-2-1 method.
The 3-2-1 method serves as the operational engine for the entire practice.
The mechanics are straightforward. You inhale for a count of 3, you hold the breath for a count of 2, and you exhale rapidly for a count of 1.
But the true value lies in why this specific ratio works both physiologically and spiritually.
Right. By intentionally structuring the breath this way,
Right.
particularly with that extended hold and the rapid release, you are actively overriding the autonomic nervous system.
The author suggests this conscious regulation effectively builds a bridge between the gross physical body and the subtle etheric body.
The 2-count hold is vital. It forces a moment of absolute internal stillness, suspending the mind's usual erratic momentum before the forced release.
But the breath alone is only half the equation here. The text mandates that this breathing rhythm be maintained while executing a highly structured 15-minute practice of radical directed gratitude.
Split into a distinct morning and night routine.
Yes.
The morning routine is ideally performed at sunrise. You anchor yourself in that 3-2-1 breath and dedicate the first 5 minutes exclusively to the head.
You direct intense gratitude toward your eyes, your ears, your brain, acknowledging their continuous function.
Crucially, you then explicitly ask these faculties for their active cooperation in the day's upcoming challenges.
Then you shift focus for the next 5 minutes to the torso.
The heart, the lungs, the digestive organs, thanking them and asking for their sustained endurance.
And the final 5 minutes are dedicated to the legs and feet, acknowledging their foundational support and requesting their guidance.
It functions as a profound psychological realignment. You are systematically negotiating an alliance with your own biology.
You are establishing the physical form, not as a slave to the mind, but as a respected partner before engaging with external stressors.
And then the night routine provides necessary counterbalance.
The night routine is ideally performed before sleep, aligning with the dark or full moon phases when possible.
You utilize the exact same 3-2-1 breath and the same 15-minute 3-part structural breakdown. However, the intention is inverted.
Instead of requesting assistance, you are performing a rigorous audit of the day you just survived.
Directing profound specific gratitude to those body parts for their service. You are actively thanking your eyes for processing data, thanking your lungs for maintaining oxygenation during moments of stress.
So what does this all mean for the practitioner?
From a practical standpoint, this daily routine of radical gratitude fundamentally dismantles our modern tendency to view the physical body with hostility.
So often, the body is perceived merely as a source of pain, fatigue, or aesthetic dissatisfaction.
This practice rewires that antagonistic relationship entirely. It transforms the perception of the physical form from a burdensome limitation into a deeply cherished temporary vessel.
And this internal harmony is the absolute prerequisite for safely navigating the complex etheric and causal states we analyzed earlier.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Considering the immense scale of this spiritual vision, it is so easy to assume the architect of this philosophy has lived an entirely insulated life.
Perhaps secluded in monastic study for decades.
Right. But the author, Gustu Sogatha Mahardika, also known as Ida Bagas Putu Mahardika, possesses a background that is aggressively rooted in modern material struggle.
His biography provides crucial validation for his methodology. It demonstrates that these techniques were not conceptualized in a vacuum.
They were stress-tested against the harshest realities of the modern economic machine.
He holds an engineering degree, but his early career was defined by grueling manual labor.
He worked as a street driver, a housekeeper, and a street vendor. The text specifically highlights his time as a TKI Tenaga Kerja Indonesia, which translates to an Indonesian migrant worker operating in the United States.
For those familiar with the cultural and economic rate of the TKI experience, it often involves extreme marginalized labor, immense pressure to send remittances home, and navigating severe systemic vulnerabilities.
He survived that intense crucible. And then he successfully navigated the complete opposite extreme.
He climbed the corporate hierarchy to become the youngest executive at a foreign Japanese bank.
He secured the wealth, the status, and the corporate power that society positions as the ultimate goal.
Yet the central pivot of his narrative is the conscious relinquishment of that power.
The text details his deliberate decision to resign from the executive level. He abandoned the corporate structure to live a hyper-simplified existence in a small hut.
He sustains himself by selling a product called LAIZ Rill, and he systematically donates the proceeds from his writings to charitable causes.
Having reached the absolute apex of the material hierarchy, he recognized it as merely another iteration of the etheric trap.
An endless loop of desire and acquisition, he concluded that fundamentally life is service.
That transition from elite corporate banking to a life of intentional simplicity and service is a profound, real-world application of his own philosophy.
He recognized that external acquisition cannot resolve internal turbulence.
The author utilizes a brilliant quote from the respected Buddhist monk Ajahn Chah to articulate this exact human condition.
The quote reads, "We are always dissatisfied. In sweet fruit, we feel it lacks sourness. In sour fruit, we feel it lacks sweetness."
That perfectly captures the inherent flaw of relying on the material plane for fulfillment. The unexamined mind is perpetually seeking the flaw in its current condition, constantly desiring the inverse of whatever it currently possesses.
It is a state of perpetual exhaustion.
It is the definition of karmic friction. And it's the precise ailment this text attempts to cure through the cultivation of internal amanda.
The disciplined diet, the 3-2-1 breathing, regulating the nervous system, the 15-minute gratitude routines, establishing harmony with the gross physical body.
These are all deliberate practical mechanisms designed to neutralize that endless exhausting dissatisfaction with the fruit we are given.
Which brings the utility of this text directly into your daily reality.
Whether you are preparing to navigate a complex, high-stakes professional negotiation or simply managing the compound stress of your weekly obligations, the methodology here is highly actionable.
Adopting the 3-2-1 breathing structure and dedicating just 15 minutes a day to consciously aligning with your physical vessel can significantly alter your baseline reality.
It pulls the consciousness out of the anxiety of future projections and the fatigue of past regrets. It anchors it with absolute precision in the present moment within the specific biological vehicle that enables your existence.
This raises an important question, however, and it's a concept I want to offer for your consideration as we conclude our analysis.
Okay, let's hear it.
The text is very deliberate in how it maps consciousness to these different realms. It posits that our waking hours are fundamentally operations within the gross physical realm.
Right.
Our dreaming hours, when the mind is independently generating complex realities from light memory and thought, are our localized experiences of the etheric realm. And our periods of deep, completely dreamless sleep, that profound state of total undisturbed equilibrium, represent our brief immersions into the causal realm.
So the waking state is physical, the dreaming state is etheric, and the dreamless sleep state is causal.
Exactly. If we accept that framework, it challenges the conventional assumption that spiritual enlightenment is about securing entry into some distant post-biological afterlife.
What if the ultimate objective of self-realization is far more immediate?
What if the goal is simply learning how to extract the absolute unshakable piece of that deep, dreamless sleep and successfully integrate it directly into our chaotic, fully awake modern existence?
That is a profound paradigm shift. How does one walk through a demanding, highly complex day while maintaining the deep, completely unbothered tranquility of a sleeping mind? We will leave you to examine that concept as you navigate the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.